Welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm joined by Todd Flanders, Dr. Todd Flanders. Now, he's delivering a lecture called Education in the Free Society at Acton University 2026. He served as headmaster of Providence Academy since its inception in 2000. And the topic that we're talking about today is really education within the free society, which is the topic of his lecture. Todd, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to begin by simply sharing this, that we take for granted the reality of liberty as a necessity for true and virtuous education. I know that that's broad strokes, and yet that's a fundamental premise of what you're delivering today.
Yes, that's right. Liberty is at the very heart. We have to be able to choose the right, the beautiful, the true, the good. If we're forced into it, there's no way we're going to appreciate any of those things.
Benjamin Rush is noted for saying that without a sense of general knowledge, a polity cannot preserve the sense of liberty. And he's completely right in saying that. In fact, it's one of the things that we have to pay attention to, that it is precisely freedom that allows us to form our intellect rightly for the sake of appreciating, in this case, the blessing of the liberty we've been given.
There's no doubt about it. I think that we see one reason why in K-12 education and higher education today are returning to understanding what liberty is properly is so essential, because young people are not learning history very well. They tend to be not reading very good literature that might actually be able to build a real perspective on choices made in the past or choices made in an imaginary sphere. And being able to choose rightly is so fundamental.
Todd, one of the things that highlights, therefore, is the unfortunate historical revisionism that we are seeing with the kind of education that's taking place today. There's a lot of reasons for it, chief among which is we've taken on such a critical mode of evaluating history, evaluating knowledge, that we simply don't want to lend context to the victories of the past, undoubtedly by flawed men. Can you please speak to that?
Certainly. A buzzword in my industry is critical thinking, and I'm a little critical of the buzzword.
Yeah.
Because what it tends to mean in practice is we're going to teach you to criticize everything that we think you need to criticize negatively so that you can take and accept and be built by an ideology that we want to convey to you, rather than to give an honest, balanced assessment of virtue and vice, sin and goodness, and allow students to see that emerge in patterns.
You take a look at the Frankfurt School, the thoughts that came out of the Frankfurt School, and how much it's permeated, unfortunately, even here in the U.S. It becomes very clear to us that this critical mode, which frankly is what woke ideology is, it's critical social activist theory, right? You view everything from a critical perspective. Can you speak to why that's a poisonous way to form the intellect of young people?
Well, you mentioned the Frankfurt School, and Herbert Marcuse, a very important representative of that school, who wrote a famous essay called, I believe, Liberating Tolerance. And the thesis for your audience is that if it's on the left, you tolerate it. If it's more conservative, having to do with religion, family, country, then you negatively criticize it.
All those things that are conservative in natural law framework.
In order to advance a kind of a Marxist agenda that enhances the ability of the state to control, starting with the controlling of young minds.
There are a lot of horrifying things that comes out of Marxism, chief among which I believe is the notion of a zero-sum game when it comes to material and wealth and the human person, when in reality wealth can be created and there's virtually limitless human ingenuity. Can you speak to just how that terrible mindset affects the way we educate the young today?
Yes, and I can speak from an experience I had a couple of months ago. I was teaching a condensed version of the Communist Manifesto to upperclassmen in a political ideas course, and they were stunned by the radicalism. They were also stunned by learning about some conditions in factories, etc., in London in the mid-19th century. I offered to them, do you know Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol? And they said, of course they do. And I said, does he talk about similar situations in London? He said, absolutely. I said, does he come to the same conclusion as Marx? And they said, no. I said, what's the difference? And they said, there is this idea that Scrooge can convert his heart. And I said, did he quit his job in disgust? They said, no. He gave Bob Cratchit a raise. So same conditions, same situation, an absolute difference of perspective. And I think that sunk into the kids' heads. They realized that there was something anti-human about Marx, very human about Dickens.
And just to kind of jump to the final punch here, that difference is a fundamental Judeo-Christian worldview.
That's right.
The reality that man has a dignity and a purpose beyond himself and is morally accountable to one greater than himself.
That is right. And it is so true in the sphere of economics. Then we can make lousy choices. We can make choices to try to amass power and oppress each other. We are sinners. We do have these desires. But we also have to train souls to work against that and develop structures that encourage proper behavior and punish bad behavior, right? Because we know we're fallen. Freedom is necessary in order for us to self-correct and to provide legal correctives when we err in a way that hurts others with our freedom.
Since you brought up that reality, the fact is this kind of a activistic approach to education and forming the mind has resulted in an overt soft-on-crime mentality in the culture. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because if we don't have structures in place to encourage virtue and to some degree create great coercive limitations against vice, well, human nature in its fallenness will run rampant.
Yes, oh yes. Oh, there's no doubt about it. One of the most powerful influences on contemporary progressive education, which is largely contemporary education, in the West and elsewhere, finds its roots in Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who specifically wanted to get rid of the idea of original sin.
Yep.
That
Man
we
is born
are
free,
good.
everywhere else he's in chains.
That is right. We are good, and it is society that corrupts us. So my challenge as a young person, according to that view, is there's nothing wrong with me, right?
Everyone else is.
The structure is wrong, the system is wrong, and my moral duty is not to look within myself to see if I might turn myself more toward God and the good, but to get out there and actively pursue changes in societal structures. It's a very radical difference.
And that's why so much of every progressive generation, progressing generation, they have an anti-establishment narrative that seems to be steeped into their bones. And
yeah, that's right.
So when we look at, for example, the United States of America coming to our 250th anniversary of the inception of this great nation, we're not pretending this is a perfect nation.
No.
But praise the Lord, we have so much to be grateful for.
Yes. In fact, our founders didn't think that we could be a perfect nation. Our founders, if you read the Federalist Papers, Madison especially, will think, how are we going to solve this problem of faction? People are so different, right?
If men were angels, government wouldn't be necessary.
Exactly. So we got to do this, and we can't pretend that we're going to perfect this or that we're going to perfect man. We've got to reduce what the evil of man can do against each other and try to figure out how we can play things for the better. And that is where religion, according to George Washington, became the first of our political institutions. We have to be grounded in a moral law that religion is particularly powerful in conveying.
Yep. I mean, Adams was extremely clear about it in his letter to the Massachusetts militia, but Washington, in his farewell address, religion and morality, indispensable supports.
Yes.
Now, we're running out of time, but for parents listening, especially grandparents listening, in terms of thinking rightly about raising children in virtue, but also in a kind of civic patriotism, a virtuous civic patriotism.
Yes, it's imperative. Wherever anyone can, choose a school that you're able to vet and to see how do they approach particularly literature and history. And if it's a Catholic or Christian institution, find out how they pursue religion, because again, religion can be adopted as a tool to an advance in ideology. What we have to do is to steward our responsibility to raise kids, raise their sentiments, raise their minds, raise their hearts toward the good, the true, and the beautiful, and it's possible to do.
We've been talking with Dr. Todd Flanders, headmaster of Providence Academy since its inception in 2000, and we've been talking about the concept of education and a free society. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.